Oh, the irony. Tilly wanting to sit with the popular kids, as if she's not already the epitome of fabulousness. Meanwhile, every single fan of the show is losing their minds over how effortlessly cool, quirky, and downright iconic she is. Miss Tilly, you are the popular kid. Trust me, if there's a table worth sitting at, it's yours, and I'd kill for a seat next to you. But then she drops that comment about wanting to be accepted by them, and it hits like a slap to the face. A reminder that even if you're rich, beautiful, and seemingly have it all, insecurities don't just disappear. We only see the polished surface, never the internal struggles. And honestly, if I kept that in mind more often, maybe I'd be a little more patient with people. You never really know what someone's going through. Oh look, the ladies are flying commercial now. How quaint. So Boz is whisking the girls off to St. Lucia, but instead of, hiring a private jet to live out their lavish, over-the-top lifestyle, they're schlepping through the airport like the rest of us peasants. How are we supposed to be dazzled by their fortune when we're watching them fight over overhead bin space? My guess? Production's probably footing the bill. After all, those private jets we used to see were most likely paid for by an actual wealthy housewife, of which there seem to be fewer and fewer these days. And hey, flying commercial might offer more flexibility. You don't have to herd everyone onto the same flight like a flock of confused geese. Boz even admitted she couldn't be bothered to coordinate everyone for the same flight, so they all flew separately to get to Miami. Priorities, right? To be fair, I know plenty of ridiculously rich people who still fly commercial. The only person I know who insists on flying in their own jet is a literal billionaire who owns the plane and doesn't need to schedule with anyone. And even he, shock, lets his kids fly commercial instead of chartering a jet every time. Let's be honest, even celebrities don't always charter jets. Some, believe it or not, get on commercial flights like everyone else. Sure, they could afford the privacy of a private jet, but sometimes they don't mind the occasional crowded terminal. Am I the only one who gets major stranger vibes from the Richards/Umansky household? Seriously, whenever Kyle and Ma talk, I feel like I'm watching two people who have never met before, and I want to crawl out of my skin. Kyle seems like he's trying to act like a teenager, like, did he time travel backwards in age? He's suddenly this timid guy who can't wait to get out and play. And the whole photo that did it excuse. Please, that's just a convenient cover. The truth? I think Kyle's known about Mao and other women for years, decades even, so this sudden public scandal isn't what has her riled up. She's just mad it's all out in the open now. And let's talk about the kids. The over-the-top affection, especially from Portia, with the kisses and love you in front of Kyle after that Europe kiss photo drops. Yeah, that was a bit much. It's like they're all pretending nothing's wrong. Are they all in on this blind eye act? So here's the big question. What are your thoughts on the Richards/Umansky family dynamic? I'm watching season 11 as a first-timer, and I don't know if it's because I already know their marriage crashes and burns in the end, but they seriously seem like strangers at this point. It feels like a performance. Mao used to murmur all the right things in the early seasons, but after a while, it's just so forced. I cringe watching their scenes, and Ma is so checked out it's painful to watch. Kyle does all the heavy lifting, talking him up like he's some kind of amazing guy, but I just don't see it. The only redeeming thing, Mao is super affectionate with his daughters, which I can actually get behind. Carlton is honestly terrifying. I just started season 4, and good lord, this woman is a nightmare. Has anyone figured out what her deal is or what her childhood was like? I'm honestly debating skipping her scenes entirely at this point. She's giving off serious season 1 Camille vibes, and that's not a compliment. I cannot stand Carlton. She's aggressively intense, and while her kids seem lovely and have grown into great young women, the whole dynamic with her and her husband is bizarre. She's way too obsessed with sex, and don't even get me started on how she objectified her nanny. Like really? Her chihuahua-level temper just makes it all worse. And here's the petty part, but I'm not sorry for it. I just think she's hideous. The second I saw her, I felt this wave of ick. Same goes for her husband. Honestly, zero redeeming qualities between the two of them. Oh, and the names she gave her kids, just plain ridiculous. She's basically a walking blowhard. I didn't buy a single word that came out of her mouth. She gives off that I'm so quirky and weird to be cool vibe, but it's so obvious and forced. Just genuinely disingenuous all around. Alright, so I'm deep into season 5 now, and Brandy, girl, I was rooting for you. How naive of me. She is straight up manipulative and just pure evil this season. I mean, seriously, the whole thing with Lisa? Ridiculous. She's playing both sides, stirring up trouble between Kyle and Kim, and then calling out Yolanda's kid, right in front of Yolanda, no less. I can't. That's beyond awful. Now, I do think there's a tiny sliver of her that actually cares about Kim, but honestly, I feel like she's just exploiting Kim's addiction to create drama. It's honestly pissing me off at this point. And then there's Lisa Rinna. I mean, the woman's a bit of a phony, but I'll give credit where credit's due. Her take on Kim's addiction is blunt, and honestly, it's what the group needs. Like, they can't just keep pretending everything's fine. By the way, I'm past the Gay Mixer episode, so I still have some ways to go. But Ian, I love here. How come nobody wants to go to therapy? I love therapy. That woman is everything. Alright, that's all for now. My relationship with Sutton has been a roller coaster. At first, I loved her. Her quirky, unique vibe was like a breath of fresh air, you know? But in the last couple of seasons, and I've definitely cooled off, and I think I've figured out why. Sutton really overestimates her role in the group. Like, she clearly thinks she should be the leader, or at least the one everyone turns to, kind of like Kyle, since she's the last original member. But the thing is, it's just not happening. Every time she tries to step up, her insecurity takes over. And when she gets overwhelmed or doesn't feel secure, boom, cue the freakouts, like the boat incident with Crystal, the Name-Em meltdown with Kyle, or her infamous stripper show in Vegas. And that's just scratching the surface. Every time she has one of these breakdowns, she loses credibility with the group. And it's like she's back at square one, desperately trying to prove herself. Honestly, I think a lot of it has to do with her mommy issues. She clearly feels like she's never good enough for her mom, and it spills over into everything else. Take this last episode, for example. She's practically begging for Kyle's friendship and approval. It's painfully obvious. If Sutton could just stop trying to force this leadership role and focus on being her true self, without the need for constant validation, she'd probably have a lot less stress and, maybe, find her place with these women. But hey, what do I know? And someone else made a really good point. Sutton has zero self-awareness. Like, she can't even see how far removed she is from the center of the group. Honestly, I've always thought of her as being a prisoner to her emotions. She's a complete mess when it comes to regulating herself. And while her feelings are totally valid, her reactions are just atrocious. She's been defined by roles her whole life: daughter, dancer, wife, mom, and now she's trying to figure out who she is without those titles. She thinks she's free, but in reality, she's just totally lost. Kyle's even said that she's trying to figure herself out, but Sutton's too stubborn to admit it. She's great for the show because she's so volatile. But if you think about her as a person, it's kind of sad. Honestly, she could really benefit from therapy, or maybe just finding a hobby outside of pretending to run some eco-friendly fashion line and shopping for overpriced clothes. Boz is hands down the best freshman housewife ever. I usually only come to Reddit to indulge in snark, but Boz, she's got me hooked. She's an expert listener, and after watching her scenes, I actually want to be her friend, something I never thought I'd say about any housewife. Then there's Kyle, whining that Beauvais didn't try to get to know her. Seriously, Kyle? And that moment where Kyle spills about Mauricio moving out. Beauvais is just there, like the ultimate ride or die. I'm all about it. Unless, of course, she's secretly a brilliant actress pulling off some next-level performance. Either way, Beauvais is officially my favorite housewife, and that's saying something. What do you all think? Unpopular opinion. Hear me out. What if we saw more of the behind-the-scenes interactions between the housewives and production? I know, it might sound lame, but honestly, I think it'd be hilarious. Like, I'm watching season 13, episode 2, the PK and Dorit anniversary dinner, and Dorit says something to Laser, who, I guess, is a producer? Not totally sure, but he turns around, gives the camera this ridiculously exasperated look, and it cracked me up. I can't help but wonder how many other little gems we've missed. Like, how many times has someone accidentally taken a camera to the face? Honestly, I would watch a whole series of just that. Throw in some confessionals with Avi and the Glam Squad, and I'd be living for it. It'd be such a refreshing change and a perfect way to add some humor to, dare I say it, the slightly duller seasons.